expectation right now that Alvin's a part of the team going into this?
Yeah, we like to go through that process, certainly, and so we feel obviously we know Alvin means a lot to us. Again, this is we're 3 days in this thing. We've signed Travis, and we'll go through that process.
Is he considering retirement?
I'm not going to get into all that stuff. I haven't had those conversations in any way. So.
Some NFL moves are strategic, others feel personal, and this one felt like both. The New Orleans Saints didn't just make a roster change, they made a decision that instantly raised questions across the league, leaving fans and analysts trying to understand what just happened. Because Alvin Kamara wasn't just another player, he was the identity of the offense, the one constant through years of transition, the player who carried the team through uncertainty, injuries, and change. Losing someone like that doesn't feel like a normal adjustment.
Kellen Moore was asked today, what about Kamara and his role with the organization moving forward? And Kellen said, we'd like to go through that process, certainly. We feel, obviously, we know Alvin means a lot to us. We're 3 days into this thing. We signed Travis, and we'll go through that process. I'm not going to get into all that stuff right now. I haven't had those conversations in any ways. That's an interesting discussion if you've got an unrestricted free agent. It's an interesting discussion. But the fact of the matter is that Alvin Kamara is under contract with the Saints. And so the easy answer, if it is in fact the answer, about Alvin Kamara's future with the Saints is, we love Alvin. We extended him last year. We're thrilled with the shape he's in right now, and we're excited for him to be part of our team next year. That's an easy, non-committal, obvious answer that wasn't given.
And yet, almost overnight, everything shifted. The Saints signed Travis Etienne Jr. to a major deal, not as depth, not as competition, but as a clear investment. The kind of move that signals a new direction rather than a temporary adjustment. That's when the meaning became obvious. This wasn't about sharing carries or creating balance. This was about replacing a player who had defined the offense for years. And once that realization set in, the story became something much bigger. For fans, it felt abrupt. There was no long build-up, no clear warning signs, no visible breakdown in the relationship. Just one move that suddenly changed everything. That kind of shift always raises deeper questions about what's happening behind the scenes.
The running game last year for New Orleans was not nearly good enough. So what have they done? Well, they went out in free agency and immediately made two big additions when it comes to running the football. It started on the offensive line, bringing in Edwards to be your left guard. And Kellen Moore talked about why it was important to target Edwards.
Felt really good identifying him as an ideal fit for our group, for our unit. Him kind of rolling in there next to Kelvin at that left guard spot. Felt like it was just a really clean transition for us. Watching his career, his consistency, his steadiness, what he did in Buffalo as far as leading that group. We certainly identified that. It was certainly a goal of ours. If this worked, it would be awesome. And fortunate for us, it felt like a good match for him and what he was looking for as well.
And for Kamara, this wasn't just a roster change. It was a signal about his future. Because when a team invests in your replacement, it doesn't just affect your role. It forces you to rethink your place within the organization entirely. From the moment he entered the league, Alvin Kamara stood out, not just as a running back, but as a complete offensive weapon. He could run, catch, and create space in ways that made him incredibly difficult to defend. He wasn't just productive, he was unpredictable. And that unpredictability made him one of the most valuable players in the Saints system. Every time he touched the ball, there was a sense that something big could happen. As the team transitioned away from the Drew Brees era, the offense needed a new identity. It needed someone who could carry responsibility in critical moments. Kamara naturally became that player without forcing the role. He became the one they trusted on third downs, in the red zone, and in situations where plays broke down. When structure failed, Kamara created something out of nothing. That reliability turned him into the centerpiece of the offense. But beyond performance, there was consistency. In a league where players come and go, Kamara stayed. He became a familiar presence for fans and a symbol of continuity for the team during uncertain years.
Not, which is why the Saints went and signed Travis Etienne, or I guess he's saying it's Travis Etienne now. However the hell you pronounce his last name, the Saints clearly signed Alvin Kamara's replacement. So the question is, what do you do now with Alvin Kamara? Kellen Moore was asked about it earlier this week, and his response was non-committal. Oh, we're going through the process. We're only 3 days into this thing. Alvin means a lot to us, but, we did sign Travis. Saints also restructured Alvin Kamara's contract. Now, in the past, when the Saints would restructure a contract, they're pushing money into future seasons in a desperate attempt to win now with someone like Derek Carr. But this particular restructure, it was smart. It reduces Alvin Kamara's cap hit, gives the Saints a lot of flexibility, which leaves the possibility open for a trade.
That kind of connection matters, because when a player becomes deeply tied to a team's identity, decisions involving them carry more weight. They're no longer just about performance, they become emotional for everyone involved. Which is why this situation feels different. The Saints didn't just move on from a running back, they moved on from someone who represented stability, identity, and trust for years. The moment the Saints signed Travis Etienne Jr., the direction of the team became clear. This wasn't a minor addition meant to add depth. It was a significant investment that pointed toward a long-term shift.
5 early in his career. I'll give you them in order, starting in 17. 6.1, 4.6, 4.7, 5.0, 4.0, and then all of a sudden you look down at these years in the last 3.9, 4.2, 3.6 last year, which was the lowest of his Saints career, meaning his NFL career. He's going to be 31. These are all the reasons why I did not want to extend Alvin Kamara and restructure that contract last year. I didn't see the need to do that.
In the NFL, money reveals intent. Teams don't commit heavily to a player at a position like running back unless they plan to feature him. That level of commitment signals a clear change in priorities. Etienne brings a different skill set. He's younger, faster, and fits the modern style of explosive offensive play. He represents potential and long-term upside, which is exactly what teams look for when planning ahead. From a strategic standpoint, the move makes sense. Teams are constantly trying to stay ahead of decline. They want to transition before performance drops rather than after. That proactive approach often defines successful organizations. But strategy doesn't eliminate impact, because even when a move is logical, it still sends a message. And in this case, that message was clear. The Saints were ready to move forward without Kamara. Once that message is sent, everything changes. Roles shift, expectations change, and the relationship between player and team begins to evolve, often in ways that are difficult to reverse. That's what happened here. The Saints may see this as a necessary step forward, but for Kamara, it represents the end of something he helped build over years of consistent performance. If the story ended with the signing, it would have been controversial but manageable. Teams make difficult decisions all the time, and players often adjust to new roles or situations. But what changed everything was Kamara's reaction. Instead of quietly accepting the situation, reports suggested he was not willing to continue under these conditions.
And the question with all of this becomes, okay, what's next with Kamara? That's the question you've got to ask, because you've made all these moves, and I talked about it last week. One of the moves that you made very quietly was restructuring Kamara's deal to allow there to be a more simplified separation. And that's just not something you just do for grins. Like, you do that with an intention, and it feels like that may happen. And so Kellen Moore was asked about the situation with Alvin Kamara.
Really, we were able to sign a few guys so far. Obviously, we've had those conversations, and we'll see where the next few months take ourselves as this season goes. Again, we got a lot of roster stuff to navigate, but we'll be just fine.
That, to me, is such a loud answer. Like, he literally said nothing in that. That's not true. That's like my wife incorrectly using the term literally. He did say something, but he didn't say anything of substance at all in that answer. It's like, well, we'll be fine, and we'll sign some guy. Like, there's nothing to that bite at all. But that's what makes it a bite, like, that I grasp to, because it's so easy to turn around and say, yeah, he's absolutely part of our plans. He's under contract, and he didn't do that. And we talked about it on Friday, but it just to dismiss that so quickly and to not divulge anything, to me, was fascinating.
The idea that he would rather step away than play elsewhere introduced a completely new dynamic. This wasn't just about playing time or contract value. It became something deeper and more personal. In a league driven by business decisions, that kind of response stands out. Players are often expected to adapt, move on, and accept changes without resistance. Kamara's reaction broke that expectation. It suggested that this situation wasn't just about football. It was about identity, loyalty, and how he viewed his relationship with the organization. That perspective added emotional weight to the entire situation. Once that reaction became public, the narrative shifted. Fans began taking sides, media discussions intensified, and what started as a roster decision quickly turned into a major storyline.
Kellen Moore of the New Orleans Saints, the head coach there, he was being asked about their acquisition of Travis Etienne Jr., and this is the exchange. It's of interest because Alvin Kamara's name got mentioned as potentially being a retiree coming up. Hit it.
Is your expectation right now that Alvin's part of the team going into this?
Yeah, we like to go through that process, certainly, and so we feel obviously we know Alvin means a lot to us. Again, this is we're 3 days in this thing. We've signed Travis, and we'll go through that process.
Is he considering retirement?
I'm not going to get into all that stuff. I haven't had those conversations in any way. So
The Saints may have expected a transition, but they likely didn't expect this level of pushback. And once a situation reaches this point, it becomes much harder to manage or control. From a football perspective, the Saints' decision follows a clear pattern seen across the league. Running backs have shorter careers, and teams often move on before decline becomes obvious. Kamara has handled a heavy workload over the years. Even if he remains productive, the long-term outlook becomes uncertain. Teams rarely wait until performance drops significantly before making a change. Travis Etienne Jr. offers a younger option with more long-term upside. He fits a faster offensive style and gives the team flexibility moving forward. That kind of shift aligns with how modern offenses are built. There's also a financial component. Moving on from veteran players can create cap flexibility and allow teams to invest in multiple areas instead of relying heavily on one position. Timing plays a role as well. The Saints are in a phase where they need to evolve quickly. Waiting too long to make changes can leave teams stuck in transition without a clear direction. So while the move may feel harsh, it reflects a forward-looking approach. The Saints are prioritizing future potential over past contributions, even if that decision creates immediate tension.
But Kamara may be retiring.
So that was going to be my question. So what if that's the case?
Well, that's why you signed Travis Etienne for sure. Because you know Jeremiah Love's not getting there to 8 anymore. Hell yeah.
Alvin
so
will
you
be,
sign him.
He'll be 31 at the end of July.
But I don't know look it up. What's his contract? What's his contractual situation?
Right.
Where they have to go through a process with him. What's the process?
Let's see. He is extended through this year.
Well, that's what it is. And if I'm him, I want more money.
This is the last year of his deal.
Yeah. Now this all makes sense. That's a process. That's what the process is.
He's not making a lot this year. though.
For all the logic behind this decision, there's a real risk the Saints may have underestimated. Because replacing Alvin Kamara isn't just about numbers, it's about everything he brought to the team beyond the stat sheet, and those things are much harder to replicate. Kamara wasn't just productive, he was reliable. He understood the system, knew how to adjust in pressure situations, and had built trust with both coaches and quarterbacks. That level of familiarity doesn't transfer instantly to a new player, no matter how talented they are. Travis Etienne Jr. brings explosiveness and potential, but potential doesn't always translate immediately. New systems take time, chemistry takes time, and expectations can quickly turn into pressure if results don't match early hype. There's also the offensive balance to consider. Kamara's versatility allowed the Saints to adapt mid-game. He could shift between roles seamlessly. Replacing that flexibility requires more than just athletic ability. It requires experience within the system. Then there's the locker room impact. Players notice how situations like this unfold. They see how quickly a central figure can be replaced, and that can affect morale. It can change how players view their own long-term security within the organization. If the transition struggles early, criticism will come fast. Fans will question the move, analysts will revisit the decision, and the narrative can shift from forward thinking to rushed very quickly if results don't follow. And perhaps the biggest risk is this: if Kamara continues to perform at a high level elsewhere, the comparison becomes inevitable. At that point, the decision won't just be questioned, it will be judged. What makes this situation stand out isn't just what it means for the Saints or Alvin Kamara, it's what it represents across the entire league. Because this isn't an isolated decision, it's part of a much larger shift in how teams operate today. The NFL has become increasingly future-focused. Teams are constantly thinking ahead, planning for the next season, the next contract cycle, and the next version of their roster. That mindset leaves less room for long-term attachment to individual players. In previous eras, players like Kamara might have stayed longer as central pieces of their teams. Loyalty carried more weight. But today, decisions are driven more by projections than by past contributions. That doesn't mean loyalty is gone entirely. It still exists, but it's conditional. It depends on performance trends, age curves, and how a player fits in the evolving system. Once those factors shift, decisions follow quickly.
For players, this creates a different reality. No matter how much they've contributed, their role is never guaranteed. Teams are always evaluating what comes next, and that evaluation can change direction faster than expected. For fans, it creates a different experience as well. Familiar faces don't stay as long. Team identities shift more frequently, and emotional connections are tested when players who once defined a franchise are suddenly replaced. The Kamara situation fits directly into this pattern. It's not just about one player or one team. It's a reflection of how the modern NFL works, where change is constant, and even the most established players are never truly untouchable.